morning, everyone, and thanks everyone that is here physically, face to face, with their bodies in the room, okay? And everyone who have their bodies somewhere else online, okay? So thanks everyone. We have an exciting day today. We have three fantastic activities today. We have three roundtables. First roundtable with European Union citizens, both in Italy and in France. Then we have a break. We'll be back at 11:30 Madrid time. And then we will have a roundtable with on the topic of losing freedom of movement, Brexit, and European Union citizens. And after that, roundtable at 12:45, again, Madrid, Rome, Paris time, we will have a final activity, a roundtable with young people, and on the topic of young people and freedom of movement, and with people here, and also we will be very happy to take your questions and your comments. After that activity, we'll be ready to close formally this event. So this first roundtable will be chaired by researchers and members of the Fun of Play team from the University of Perpignan and the Université Orientale in Naples. So I want to give up to my colleagues. You've been appointed co-hosts, Henry and Arianna, so you are good to share. So let me know if this is okay, or if you have problems with sharing. I want to stop sharing my my presentation now.
Hi everybody. Can you hear me? Is that of interest?
Yes.
Hi. Can you see me?
Yes, we can see you. We can hear you.
Wow. I can't see myself, but I guess I'm showing up somewhere.
We can take a picture of your super.
I just want to apologize before we start. I sort of came down with flu yesterday, so I'm sitting in my office at home sweating. I'm going to do my best. We're on the round table with Arianna, who's here. Hi, Arianna.
Buongiorno, good morning, everyone.
And Mai, who's over here, who's joining from the university. We're supposed to be doing this together, but unfortunately, I couldn't be in my office at work today. Sorry, I've just sort of given myself the floor like this. Is this okay? Can we just check to see whether our participants are all here? Is that okay? Now, from our side, this should be Kim, Marian, and Katarina. Are you all here?
Hello.
I'm here.
Wow. Everybody
Hi
answered
there.
it.
Yes, I'm here too.
Oh, you're Marian. You're there. Is Kim there?
I am here.
Ah, can we have a look at you?
I think so.
Oh, there we go. That's Kim. And is Katarina there?
Yes, I'm here. Sorry, I had to connect with someone else's computer. So
okay,
yeah.
This is good fun. Yeah. So you're actually called Adam. Again, could you just slip your camera on if you've got one, just so we can see you?
Of course.
Great. Lovely to see you. And can we see whether the participants from the Italian survey are here? Arianna, can you do the?
Yes, we have Celia. Yeah. Celia, can you hear us?
Yes. Hi. Good morning.
Good morning. Buenos dias. And we have Sophie as well. Can you hear us, Sophie?
Hello, good morning.
Oh, wow, you have a proper mic. Good morning.
Oh, wow, you've got a team around you. This is good. This is nice. Okay. Just before we start, I think it might be quite nice if you just basically tell us where you all are, just so we get an idea of geographical spread, because, I mean, this is the advantage of remote meetings. So where are you all at the moment?
I'm actually in Birmingham. I flew from France because I'm normally in France, but I flew to Birmingham yesterday.
Oh, say Birmingham, UK. Great.
Yes.
Sophie, whereabouts are you? This is, yeah, Sophie with the team.
Good morning, everyone. We're from Benevento, near Naples, and we would like to introduce us. My name is Arianna. Today, we're going to translate for Sophie, our teacher.
Oh, well, great. Okay. Celia, whereabouts are you?
Hi, I'm in Portici, in Naples. Portici is one of the towns in the periphery of Naples, so I'm in Italy, in Naples.
Great. And Kim, whereabouts are you? You're just going to have to put your microphone on, I'm afraid. We can't hear you.
I'm at work in Le Soleil, near Perpignan, in the south of France.
Wow, at work. So we'll try not to be too intrusive, but a little bit all the time. And Katerina, whereabouts are you?
Well, I'm currently in Andorra, the little state within the Pyrenees.
Okay, great. So we've got quite a spread. Just before we get started, we've got a huge list of questions, and we're going to have really good fun together. I just would like to remind you that what we'd like to do is that with each sort of question, some of them are quite open. Arianna's got some really good stuff, follow-up questions, so she can really get into the details with you. The idea is that if anybody's got like things to add to a question that's been asked to somebody else, then you just jump in and answer. We'd really like to hear you playing off each other, because this is what's really good about this roundtable, is that we're bringing together people that don't actually know each other. You are all part of a survey. Your data is all on a lovely website and it's great stuff, but you don't actually know each other. Now that's really quite interesting, isn't it? So you're all sort of children of the Format Play project, but you only know your sort of foster parents. You don't know the wider community. So I would feel really, really privileged to be able to make this roundtable a moment for us to play off each other and for your experiences to really sort of, you know, let's say to seek for sort of synergies and shared experiences or even confrontations. So do feel free to jump in. Now, if at any time you don't feel okay in English, just use your language and we'll sort it out, okay? If you feel better off talking in Spanish, Italian, Catalan, whatever, just go for it. And we won't lose anybody in translation. I think that's very important. Now, before we get started, I'd just like Arianna and Mai just to say a couple of words about who they are, because I know you also did some of the interviews, so that's very important that we know who you are. But before then, I'll just say who I am. I'm actually probably the least important person here today. I wasn't involved in the actual interview process. So it's very interesting for me to sort of look in and to see all these details through the data, although I've actually, been sitting outside the field work from the start. So can we have Arianna and Mai? Can you just say who you are and how you relate to the project and how you relate to our FOM children?
Sure. Thank you, Henry, for this wonderful introduction. So I am Arianna. I'm actually one of the researchers of the Format Play project, and I had the honor to interview 35 wonderful people, and that was a very enriching experience for me. And I was also the one who worked on the annotation scheme, but this is, research. And so I was also the one annotating the interviews, meaning that I mapped out the meaningful things that emerged out of the interviews. And yes, I'm very honored to be here and very grateful to the participants that accepted the invitation once again. Sophie and Celia also participated in the Format Play national event that we had in Naples already 2 weeks ago, I guess. So thank you for being here once more. And yes, maybe I'll leave the floor to to my.
Hi. Yeah, I will be. You have a strange sound, right? It's an echo. Was it okay for you?
Sounds like you're in the bath, but apart from that, it's fine.
No, because I have to use my phone. I haven't got the camera on the, so I'm like double. No. Are you hearing me okay?
It's interesting.
It's
We-
interesting. Okay.
We can understand.
Right. Yeah, so I've been doing the same work as Arianna. I've been on the field for a year, meeting people and doing the interviews, and of course it has been a really a big part of my life and quite an emotional part actually. And I'm really impatient to see Mario, Kim, and Katarina, what you've become since, because we haven't been meeting except Kim, met a little. And really impatient also to know about Celia and Sophie, discover a bit what happened in their life since the interview, if the interview has changed anything, if being part of the project has changed anything in your life. And yeah, I think Harry and Arianna will be more in the serious questions, and I will be more interested in the personal aspect of your lives. So sometimes I might be popping up like, you said that last year. What do you think now? So yeah, thanks everyone for being here. So I'm really, really happy to participate. Thank you guys.
Right, May, I think you're going to have to cut one of your speakers. I think you've probably got two speakers and they're sort of playing off each other. You're going to have to sort that out because it's making a bit of a weird experience for us all. Okay, so if you're feeling okay, can we kick off? Now I'd like to just go through each participant. So if the way I can see you on my screen. And I don't know if everybody has the same order on the screen. I've got Sophie's number 1, Marian's number 2, Celia's number 3, Kim's number 4, and Katarina is number 5. So that's the order. So if I'm going to sort of ask things, and I'll try and stick to that order, and then we sort of move in. So I'd just like to know one thing, and I think it'd be really interesting for people who are at this summer school to hear about this. I'd just like to know exactly what made you participate in this project. Why did you answer yes when you were asked by Arianna or by May or by anybody else? Why did you do it? You could have said, no, I'm not interested. So can we just go through this? Feel free to, to sort of elaborate on this, but it was worth doing. So I'd just like to hear about this. Why did you do it? So can we start with Sophie on that?
Sì, allora io sono di Marsiglia, in Francia, è stata una terra che ha accolto molti italiani, infatti tutti i miei nonni e bisnonni sono di origine italiana. E diciamo che quando sono arrivata poi in campagna facilmente ho avuto una prima rete di colleghi che insegnano francese, tramite i quali ho saputo dell'esperienza e ho voluto partecipare perché appunto anche rispetto al mio lavoro, che lavoro appunto al linguistico, al liceo, vorrei partecipare a migliorare anche l'offerta formativa in qualche modo.
Okay. So, I'm French of Italian origins because my grandparents and great-grandparents were from Italy. I live in Marseille. Well, Italy and Marseille are really connected by a strong bond. So when I first came to Campania, our region in the south of Italy, I had a strong connection with my colleagues because I worked in summer schools together with French. Okay, together with French high school. And well, there was like this possibility, the chance to take part in this project because I wanted to enrich my cultural baggage and I wanted to
anche questioni più attuali. No, te lo dico anche questioni più attuali, anche il fatto degli immigrati a Marsiglia.
Okay, and I wanted to learn some more about, some themes that characterize our social condition and our society. And for example, I learned some information more about the condition of immigrants in Marseille, because thanks to a study that was realized, I understood that half of the population in Italy, in Marseille, was from Italy. So, well, we can understand the strong bond existing between France, and in particular the city of Marseille, and our beautiful country, that is to say, Italy.
That's very interesting. There are some things you've said there that I'm sure will be picked up in other people's presentation. Let's keep going. Marion, can we move on to you?
Yes, certainly. So I was particularly interested because I moved to France just prior to Brexit, and I still work in the UK, which is hence why I'm in Birmingham at the moment, because I can't get work as in my field in France because public health is not undertaken in the same manner. But I feel public health is an incredibly important arena when you consider how immigrants arrive in countries and how very disadvantaged. And I see this played out in the role that I undertake. And one of the things about public health is that you're really concerned with how do you improve inequitable situations. And so that's the kind of aspect that I found really interesting is, and how do we also ensure that we can facilitate people's movement based on their expertise and being able to contribute to the countries where they're living as well. So it's around those things. It's quite complicated, I suppose, but when Mai was sharing with me what she was trying to do, I said, oh, I would certainly be interested in being interviewed. So that's my little bit of this story.
Okay, that's really good. And I'm sure we're going to put these pieces together and the puzzle at the end is going to be a really nice one. Can we move on to Celia? Can we just get you to talk about, why you did this? What was your motivation for joining in?
Hi. Yes, for me personally, the topic, for me personally and globally, is a very relevant topic right now for the movement. Also for me, it was personally engaging because I've had the opportunity to enjoy this kind of movement for the past years. So for me, it was specifically interesting. And also because Arianna is my Italian teacher and we have a really good relationship. So I knew at a personal level it was going to enrich my experience in this country, and I was going to take something really good out of it, comparing my experience with other people's experience.
Great. And this is really good. Can you tell us about why you wanted to do it? Or didn't want to, but why you did it anyway?
I think you cut out there. Were you asking me?
Yeah, sorry, I maybe have a bit of a dodgy connection here. Yeah, can you tell us your reasons for joining in?
So firstly, much like Celia said, it's an opportunity. I don't get offered on a daily basis to participate in studies. So when I do, I take an interest. Secondly, I said yes. I probably would have said yes no matter the study because I quite like Mai and working with her is fun. And thirdly and finally, luckily the subject matter is of interest to me because I have spent my life working on my integration and acceptation to French culture. And I consider the problems that I face during this mission quite often. And I often compare French and English culture on how they treat each other and how they treat people within the culture. So there were a lot of interesting points that I've thought about throughout my life, which were relative to the subject matter of this research project. So very interesting for me. So I'm very glad to have participated.
Great, thanks. I was just taking notes there, sorry. Right, Katerina, can you tell us about your participation?
Yes, of course. Well, back then I was a student in FLE in Perpignan, and Mai was my teacher. And when she told me about this study, I was really interested in participating and discovering a little bit all these different interviews. It's something really interesting, and we can see like the background of everyone. And yeah, I found it really interesting. And of course, I think that it's a huge opportunity to participate in such a study.
Wow. Yeah. We didn't prepare this, by the way. We didn't. But these are really good. This is a really good set of answers. And I would just like to sort of just kind of let somebody in, right? Just like to sum up some of the things that you've been saying. I mean, I'm just looking at you. I don't quite know the age gap we have here, but you're not of the same generation. I can look at you. We just have students. We've got senior people. We've got so different. So we have recurrent elements in your answers that I think are going to feed in to the rest of the round table. And one thing that I think is just starting to crop up in your answers here is a general feeling. I'm going to, for want of a better word, I'm going to call it empathy. I don't know whether that is the word I'm looking for. I don't know whether it's empathy. It may also be a more ego thing. It may be a more sort of a road to self-discovery, sort of self-empathy. I don't know whether that word exists either. But in your answers, there's a lot of self and there's a lot of other, which I think is actually very interesting. Okay. Some of you also mentioned the fact that you were genuinely just interested in, in the fact that it's a project and you like that. But there's a lot of people things in here. Marion was talking about, sort of actually what I need to share on this because there were really important questions behind all of this. The fact that, what do we do for people who move around, and how do we, as people who have been privileged to be able to do this, how do we actually how can we benefit or help other people benefit from our reflections on this? Now, that's something I think that we can take forward. And it's really quite clear in what you're saying is that there's a genuine idea that basically what it is in some way helping us all fathom out where we need to go or could go or don't want to go when it comes to dealing with freedom of movement. Now, I'd like to basically pass on now to Arianna, who I'd like to get to engage with you on your basic understanding of what it means to be free in freedom of movement. Arianna, could you move on to this next part of questioning?
Sure.
So basically, what it means to you, and what is your basic definition of freedom of movement? How does it work for you? So, Arianna, I'll let you pilot this bit.
Yes, thank you, Henry. Sure, maybe you could, I don't know, share your definition of freedom of movement, also according to your own experiences. And I was also fascinated by what you were sharing before. And I guess that the red thread there is the need to integrate and to adapt to the host culture. So maybe you want to also share something about your freedom of movement, but also the need to, feel part of a society that is actually hosting you. And, I think it's also a very reciprocal process, because once we are embedded in a social, but also cultural environment, we also give back. So can you maybe link this to points somehow? Also, I don't know if you want to make reference to your own linguistic journey and how you adapted linguistically to the host country. Yes, I don't know if we can. Okay, maybe we can put the same. I don't know who was the first.
Continuo?
Yes.
Ok, allora rispetto all'età sto per compiere 36 anni e quello che mi interessa è anche imparare dalla storia, cioè quello che è successo per gli immigrati italiani anche a Marsiglia, cosa che svilupperanno loro perché le ho già scritto quello che intendo dicendo questo. Ovviamente la libertà di movimento per me è poter spostarsi facilmente senza avere controlli pesanti e avere anche facilità dal punto di vista amministrativo, cosa che non abbiamo. Magari ci sono stati anche accordi tra paesi europei, ma stesso i dipendenti non sono al corrente. Stesso a Roma, che è capitale, mi è capitato che al comune non sapevano niente anche dell'iscrizione all'anagrafe che volevo fare, che non ho potuto fare.
So first of all, we'd like. Sorry. Sorry.
Problema tecnico che c'è qualche movimento di classi che stanno seguendo dietro e tornano e...
We are at school, so there are some problems. So we were going to say, in this case, we'd like to point out that I am 36, so I'm turning 36, and I've experienced a lot of situations regarding freedom of movement. And this is mostly because in this case, there are many problems concerning freedom and the ability to move from one place to another, from one country to another. Most of all, these problems are connected to bureaucracy. The fact there are not only many laws, but these laws sometimes can turn into constrictions for people. For example, in this case, I quoted a specific event in my life when I was in Rome, and the municipality didn't even know that I was a citizen in the city. Another thing that I like to point out is the fact that the problem with mobility is something that has always existed. For example, I can make a reference to my family life, to my grandparents or great-grandparents that were Italian, but at the same time didn't have citizenship.
Anche il fatto che non parlavano per
The fact that, for example, they didn't even talk Italian, and they had to become part of a society only speaking French in order to integrate, to become part of French society.
Thank you so much. Okay, next. Celia, maybe?
Yes. About the age, Sophie said her age, so I'm gonna share mine. I'm 27. About freedom of movement, what it is for me, it's obviously the fact of moving your physical body to one place to another, feeling free enough to do it. But not only that, for me, also freedom of movement is having the actual ability to make that choice in terms of having enough resources economically, but not only economically, like also in terms of education, your social background, how educated you are, your family, everything that is not strictly directly with your choice, with your personal choice. So having the ability to move and having the actual resources to make a free choice, that will be freedom of movement for me. And connecting with the other questions that you made, Spanish, and in society right now is Italian. So the cultural shock that a person can find moving from one country to another for me is minimal because the societies and the way we socialize are pretty similar. So I have not encountered strong difficulties. Also, what I'm doing here is I'm a volunteer. I'm volunteering, so I have had a very welcoming experience everywhere I go because as a volunteer, usually people perceive you as someone that is doing something nice for their neighborhood, their country, their town. So this is my personal experience. The only thing that I have found some difficulties or that I have a struggle a bit being in a society that is not the one I belong is exactly that, the feeling of belonging. I have never had that experience living abroad. I in a language level, I feel pretty comfortable talking Italian. I feel pretty comfortable moving around. I don't struggle with that. With what I struggle is on a personal level to feel part of a society that is moving. Everyone is moving at the same rhythm. Everyone is sharing some tricks, sharing some special words or special ways of moving that they all know, and you are not part of it. So yeah, this is my answer. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Salia. And Kim?
So freedom of movement for me, across Europe, I suppose. Well, I think it's a good thing. I've written down some words. For me, it provides us with greater possibility because the quantity of land that we allowed access on is greatly increased, and the difficulty of access is decreased. So increased possibility, thus increased opportunity, thus increased diversity, and the possibility for increased experience, once again, with easier access. So the world is open to us, and the difficulty of acquiring these experiences is decreased. So this allows us to evolve our social or professional life in ways that we were not able to do before, and it allows the mingling of cultures across Europe, and the diversification of the European people. So I'm a big fan of freedom of movement, and I think it should be a worldwide thing.
Thank you so much, Kim. I was also taking notes, and I think it's great how you're connecting freedom of movement to all these different concepts. That is, for example, belonging, diversification, professional growth, greater possibilities and opportunities, and yes, history. Life history. The family history as well. So I think we can go back to some of these points later. And now I will maybe leave the floor to Mariam.
I found that quite interesting what Kim was saying, and so I'll follow on a bit from that. And I also want to bring in the fact that I am one of the older people that were interviewed. So I kind of I do have the possibility of retiring next year due to my age. However, I still feel that I have an incredible amount to offer, and therefore I'm not in the slightest bit interested in retiring, because I'm still involved in research, and I think research across countries is hugely beneficial. And with what Kim was saying around those cultural elements and learning, I'm currently doing a piece of research on motherhood, and very interested in looking at motherhood as from a mid-motherhood and older mothers from a multicultural perspective, because I have always worked multiculturally from when I left a university originally, and then have gone back and studied since as well. And so that whole thing about being able to collaborate effectively is really great. And I find that one of the most important elements of freedom of movement. My daughters are also very keen on the whole aspect of freedom of movement. And one of the things about Brexit for me was that the attempt to curtail our ability to move freely was something that really irritated me, and was one of the reasons why I decided that I wanted to move out of the UK. And my eldest daughter moved to the Netherlands, and she's doing her PhD in the Netherlands at the moment. So for all of us, and I think because I traveled an awful lot, so I've lived in 3 different continents, Asia, Africa, and Europe. And so for me, my working life has all been around the ability to move, and Kim's comments about that, being able to move and contribute within the places that you are is something that I think is hugely beneficial, and that gives us that diversity of thought, so that we don't end up being constrained and are able to be creative and think about the different things in different manners. Because I found that whole our belief systems, and some we have different ways of viewing health. We have different ways of belonging to families. In some places, we have a very individualistic society, which is mainly Western. And I've had the opportunity to work in countries where there is a much greater connection between family members and supporting each other in a more communal manner. And so it's very fascinating for me. And those are the kinds of things that enables us to work and think about things in different manner. It's like mothers end up thinking that their children are leaving them and are afraid of their children leaving their nest, whereas you don't get that within kind of multi families where there's multiple generations who work together. And so I think there's an awful lot that we can learn from each other in the way that we comprise our units, our family units, and to be able to see things in an extended manner can be helpful. I also found that during the pandemic, that need to be able to think about how things move, that freedom of movement can also cause problems. And if we don't think about the way that communities operate, we also cause problems. So, for example, if you're trying to track what's happening to an outbreak, if you don't take into context the way that families are constructed, you get into huge problems. So that was really seen as in Birmingham, because those that were kind of working on how do we contain this didn't necessarily take into context the fact that whole streets were one family. And so therefore that the spread of disease can happen incredibly rapidly, and that wasn't taken into consideration to start with at all. So those are my thoughts on how movement is incredibly beneficial, but also can be there's some things that we need to consider that we've not had always done so.
Can I just come in before? I know that Katerina also wants to ask something. Can I just come in and something? Because I was very interested in actual fact. I could always sort of see it coming, but you've really pinpointed it. And in using in very clear words, the word family, this family, and how we consider what a family is, how it works, and how in actual fact, a lot of our lives are it's constructed around a particular model of what a family could or might be, but it probably doesn't actually reflect what a lot of modern families actually are and what they do. So that's something I find very interesting in what you're saying, that the whole impact, as well as this idea of passing on the idea of being a free mover, and the fact that your children have actually inherited basically this mindset. So I'm very interested in this family notion. How do we redefine it? And you mentioned motherhood and things. So sort of the basis of how humans sort of come together as sort of little units and grow together, and how this might be impacted. So that's something I've noted down, and I'd like to come back to a bit later. Sorry, I'm just butting in. I think we need to move on to Katerina. I'm sorry, Arianna, but I just had to pinpoint that. I don't know whether we've had such strong emphasis on the word family before. That's a very interesting thing for me.
Catherine, if you want to jump in.
Right. After all these different answers, I think that it's a little bit complicated to answer, because there was a lot of great answers. And I just think that for me, particularly, freedom of movement is really important in the sense of we might not identify with the country we were born in, and the fact of being able to move around and to maybe identify with another country is really important. So yeah, to be honest, I don't know what else to add, but that's my opinion.
No, I think that's very important to emphasize as well, the fact that the process of identification is a very fluid and relational process as well, and it can vary according to, you know, where we are in our life trajectory and so on and so forth. I was also very interested in this intergenerational perspective that actually Marian was talking about. And yes, maybe we can go back to that in a sec. And also maybe if you want to share a little bit more about those experiences that in a way made you perceive that you were restricted in your freedom of movement. Brexit was already mentioned, so maybe, you know, for those of you that come from the UK also, I don't know if you want to share your experiences around Brexit as a, you know, as a historical turning point, let's say, and also how you went through that the process of maybe elaborating the fact that you were not part of the EU as an institution as well, and also how maybe Sophie and Celia experienced that as well, as, you know, living in Europe and maybe feeling a little bit more restricted in how you could move to the UK and, you know, share your human but also yes, intellectual capital there. So I don't know if you want to shed a little bit more about this, again, this experiences of restrictions regarding freedom of movement. And yes, if you've ever even felt bordered in other ways, for example, linguistically, culturally, socially. Yes, Sophie.
Ah, non ti sento più. Ok, allora un'altra esperienza è proprio all'interno del paese stesso, a volte ci stanno anche quei problemi che tra una sede e l'altra ti dicono no, devi fare prima questa carta qua e poi fare quell'altra carta di là, e mentre dicevano la stessa cosa nell'altra parte, dunque ero proprio bloccata, mentre era comunque il mio diritto di iscrivermi all'anagrafe, fare la residenza e tutto quanto.
So the problem here is the fact that constriction is something we could say almost belongs to everyday experience. First of all, there is the fact that in order to be part of a country, you need a lot of paperwork. So in this case, there is a specific example, if I can quote the case of the registry of Italians living abroad. That is to say that in order to become an Italian citizen, I had to register. But there were a lot of problems because I could not just simply become an Italian like everybody else. And
il fatto che non sia formato e che mi ha indicato lei che è fatto per gli italiani all'estero, non per gli stranieri in Italia.
So generally there are a lot of contradictions even inside Italian bureaucracy. There, for example, foreigners in this case are not given the right instructions in order to become part of our community, and they always feel cornered, they always feel trapped somehow in their own identity of foreigners, we say.
So in your case, bordering was more related to, in a way, this bureaucratic process of exclusion, no? That maybe perhaps foreigners actually experience. Thank you, Sophie. This is actually, I think, something that was shared across the interviews, that the difficulties, the hardships that, you know, newcomers actually have to face once they move in the host country. So thank you for highlighting that. And then we have, I guess, Celia.
Yes, thank you. About my personal experience of how my freedom of movement has been shaped or has been controlled. me as a very privileged person, I have never encountered any situation that has made me question my freedom of movement, or someone, a person or institution or administration that has not let me enjoy my freedom of movement. So sadly, I cannot share any experience related with that. In the other hand, related with the question you did about maybe your thoughts, even if we have not lived in our own body some of the experiences. Talking about the Brexit that was mentioned before, what I will share of my thoughts in this reflection is that how some ideologies has been shaped or had change or freedom of movement, and the vision that we have of freedom of movement in the past decade. I will share in every country has changed and has been something that related to borders and not to the personal experience that we can have as the freedom of movement being a right that we all should have. That has been erased of the picture completely. It's not about a right, or it's not about a choice. It's about ideologies and immigration, and it's something that it can be taken away from you if you have the specific circumstances. So, yeah.
Thank you so much. I think it's something that we need to keep in. Henry, maybe you wanted to say something?
No, I was just going. I was between coughing. I'm also just really enjoying this. I was just wondering whether we could, because we've got a really good question in the chat. I was wondering whether we could add this question into the question, your original question, Arianna. Can we sort of increase the question? So your original question is okay, still stands. We add this little bit in, which this question comes from Isabel in the chat. Hello, Isabel. Thank you for your question. It says, I'd like to ask the participants a question. I think it might be of interest. How do you navigate between your original culture and the one you live in now, considering Brexit and the evolving landscape of freedom of movement in the EU? This idea of evolving landscape, the fact that something is moving away from us, or we've moved away from something, or we're going towards something. So can we add a sort of add this sort of extra bit onto the original question of Arianna, just to spice things up a bit in the morning?
Yeah, and it links
right.
to what Celia was saying.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking. Yeah,
freedom of movement and freedom of movement as a conditional right rather than a universal right. Yes. Sure. I think it's.
Is that right? Yeah. It just makes things a bit more complex, but it adds an extra sort of bit, and it just ties in with what Celia was saying, which was why I thought that might be interesting.
Absolutely. Marion, maybe you want to.
No, it's incredibly fascinating for me, because I've been through the process of becoming a resident of France. And which was incredibly complex, because the French really love a bit of paperwork as well. But I also feel that I was fortunate, because that process was started early on, and I think people who have made movement later had more frustrations, because I was already present in France for 5 years before all the decisions around that paperwork happened. So there were certain things that I didn't have to do, which made it a bit more fortunate. However, I'm not intending to, at this moment in time, to become a French citizen, because I still enjoy some of the aspects of being British, especially wanting to continue working. And if I became a French citizen, then I would have all sorts of problems. I couldn't do the role that I am at the moment. So I'm in that very fascinating spot at the moment. So that gives a different bit of a nuance. But I like that whole thought of that opening that landscape, because I do think that's interesting, because because I'm not used to staying put in one place because of having traveled a lot. I do find that at some point I might feel that my husband and I might move again, probably within Europe, and because of Brexit, that will add a different element. Because if I was a French citizen and decided I wanted to move to Spain, for example, that would just be no problem at all. But I have to then, there's a thought process around, well, what is going to be the additional paperwork if that was a choice that we decided to make. So I think there are some ramifications around that, and that does make you feel somewhat constrained. And it also, if I suppose it's that whole thing around having my daughters in different countries as well. It would be so lovely to have that greater freedom of movement. And I think one of the things that I've observed of late is a worrying aspect around this. Oh, you've got to stick our drawbridges and become so focused on who we are. It's like seeing what's transpiring in the States is kind of challenging, and some places within Europe who've become much more nationalistic and far right in their approach to things. And being near to Perpignan and seeing how that far right element around in that area is quite concerning, because I find that ideology is not one that resonates in the slightest with me, because I see we are all we're all humanity. There's much more that's one of one rather than distinctions, because those distinctions are all made by social constructions. And so how do we ensure that the othering that takes place doesn't actually become the focus? That what's more important is that we are all connected, and that we all have a part to play within a very complex society.
Thank you so much for this thought-provoking contribution. And it is very complex. And we have another actually question from the floor. So from Jules, I have a sort of follow-up for Marion. Would you naturalize at that point to reduce the paperwork and increase opportunities in your retirement? I was so worried by Brexit that I became a dual national with Irish citizenship, precisely to keep my options open after Brexit that tried to close doors. So I don't know if you want to directly respond, or also if Kim and Catherine have maybe some thoughts on this. Yes, paperwork reduction, and yes.
I think it's a really fascinating question, and it's one that I continue to grapple with. I think there's also another element that's going on at the moment, which I think needs to be viewed, is this whole return to office mandate that's happening in the UK, for example. That because we became so much more flexible in terms of because of the pandemic, having to operate as we are now, virtually in this manner. It opened up so many possibilities around collaboration on a much larger scale across many different countries. And I think that is something that we need to try and find ways to facilitate, and to see that you only grow from it and enable more thinking that's wider, that will enable us to kind of overcome some of the challenges that we face in terms of climate change, etc., and so forth. Because more minds on complex problems that have an expertise will bring better outcomes. And I think that's one of the things that I find is something that gives me hope. And so maybe I will finally decide that I'll choose somewhere to naturalize, so that I don't have to have this perpetual paperwork situation, because it is a pain in the posterior, shall I put it that way?
Sure. Maybe Kim and Catherine, I don't know if they want to follow up on this. Yes, collaboration across countries on global struggles and also maybe on the creation of solidarity processes that maybe help us unite somehow.
Well, firstly, to answer the Brexit question, how did Brexit make me feel? How did I live through Brexit? Well, I was younger when Brexit happened, and I didn't really mind at the time. I didn't notice the changes, and I wasn't quite sure if I wanted to live in the UK or in France. But since then, I have decided I want to live in France after having been to the UK and decided that I don't quite like it there. No offense to the UK, but I do prefer the lifestyle down here. So I'm glad that I've been able to experience that and make that choice. So since that decision, Brexit has had a different effect. So I do care about Brexit now because it affects me directly. And it does make life ever so slightly harder for the British to live in Europe. Not as hard as other countries. We're in the middle ground. It's much harder for my friends coming from Argentina or Nigeria to come to France than it is for me from Great Britain. But it is still slightly more difficult, and there is a bit more paperwork. So I had my titre de séjour made for 10 years, and now I'm looking at it and I realize I have 7 years left before I have to do it again. So I am thinking, well, maybe I should do the dual nationality or the naturalisation when I can, because it's a lot of time, paperwork, and quite a bit of expenses, and apparently quite a long wait time for a response. But I think I am planning to do so because I do want to stay in Europe and I do want to stay in France. Regarding some of our earlier conversations, I do believe that family is an important reason for which people decide to move or naturalize. But I think another big reason, and one of the main reasons, is the economy or a financial reason. And people will decide to or to not naturalize based on the financial advantage. So it's either they like the culture or they have family or just finance. In the freedom of movement and even across the world, we have rich countries and poor countries. And I've noticed that we often have people who will move down from rich countries for a greater lifestyle in a poor country. But there are also people from poor countries who will fight their way up to work in a rich country to improve their chances of getting that lifestyle. So that's the exchange I've really noticed. Down here in the south, there are a lot of English people who live here, and they live a much greater lifestyle they would be able to live in the UK on the same financial situation. And we have I've noticed a lot of people from down here who will try to move to London or England. I think because they know that they will be able to have a better professional lifestyle than they would down here. So the young people move up for a greater professional opportunity, and the old move down for a better end of career. That's all I have. Oh, there was another question you wanted to go over there, wasn't there?
No, I think that was it. Thank you, Kim. Catherine?
Yes, I don't really know how to answer this question, to be honest. But I think if we continue on this importance of freedom of movement, I do think that, well, with everything that has been already said, it is really important. And maybe also the fact that it is interesting because there's some nationalities that we can't cancel. Like, if I'm not wrong, I think Argentinians can't cancel their nationality, and there's other countries do. So that makes, I suppose, even more difficult to be part of another country if we can't cancel our nationality, I suppose. So yeah, in terms of paperwork, I think it's the most complicated part in a lot of countries. But yeah, I don't know, maybe I'm going all over the place, but yeah, I don't know.
Okay, great. This is really interesting, and I'm intrigued by the fact that, firstly, the fact that you've all got so much to say about these things. I don't know. Often in these cases, one, sort of earlier on, Kim said he made a few notes and whatever, but it seems to me you're very articulate, and your answers are actually very clear. And I'm not sure that personally I have such sort of structured answers to my questions. So this is going really well, and I'm really sort of I'm getting a lot out of this. And there's something that all of a sudden has struck me, and it's something I'd just like to follow up on, following Arianna's just push to getting you to talk about what freedom of movement actually is, and and the types of basically the obstacles and problems and what have you we have around this. Now, there's one sort of potential obstacle, problem, whatever, which several years ago, well, I mean, several decades ago, rather, would have been, I think, at the forefront, and that is language. Now, when I was young, people went abroad or traveled or were mobile, and it was all about learning languages and doing languages. And language was at the forefront of just about everything. When we spoke about mobility, we spoke about, I grew up in the UK, talking about going to Europe and all this sort of stuff. It's funny to hear that actually nobody's spoken once about language in what we've said so far. Now, I guess, and I'm going to actually start my question in reversed order, because I'm going to go straight to Katerina, because I know where she's based and I know where she's coming from, and I know her linguistic background, because just so happens I know Andorra quite well. So I'm just interested in maybe just pushing this, keeping this same question about what it means to move, to be free, to deal with obstacles and to overcome them, to redefine how we interact with our new society and how we interact with our former, sort of sphere in a sense. So what role does language play for you? Bearing in mind that I think that 2 decades ago, we would be having this conversation and language would be the principal element of our discussion. And I think this is all of a sudden, does it mean language has become irrelevant? Or does it mean that it's just occupies it plays a different role in how we deal with mobility? Can we talk about this now? Why is language not being mentioned? Let's put it like that. Katerina, can we talk to you? Because I know that you come from a very rich linguistic background, from a country that does languages very well, in actual fact.
Well, yeah, of course, it is really interesting. Here in Andorra, we all grew up speaking in different languages. First of all, the official language, which is Catalan. We also have the Spanish and the French, of course. And I would think that in a way it is really important for someone who wants to be free and in this freedom of movement to speak a lot of languages. And in a way, first of all, the English maybe, because it's like the international language, but in a way, I suppose that we are personally, I think that there's some languages that shouldn't be considered as less important. And here's my point. For example, the Catalan. I do have the feeling that here in Andorra, for example, we're losing a little bit of this importance. I don't know if I'm really answering the question, but Catalan, I do have the feeling that it's less spoken, and this creates maybe a loss of identity in a way for Andorran people, in my case. But yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. So you're looking at language in relation to identity. Obviously, people who don't know about Andorra, it's a very small country, and it's the only country that has Catalan as its official language. That's important just to remember that. So so you would relate language to the issue of language loss or language maintenance in a sense in relation to identity. Am I right there?
Yes, you're
Correct me if okay. That's interesting. Can we go back in reverse order? So can we move back to Kim now to talk about language? Because I know that you came to France and you had to learn bloody French as a kid, so that probably wasn't easy. But you know it's not a problem now, obviously, and you haven't mentioned it so far. So can you tell us about this?
Okay, yes, I had to learn French. I started when I was 7, and my sister started when she was 6, and it was much easier for her. Communication came more naturally to her. I've heard many myths. I don't know if they're scientifically proven, but they say that women communicate earlier and better than men. And I definitely felt that my sister had an advantage on the social spectrum when we were younger. She communicated a lot faster and learned French a lot better than I did. But because she learned it so fast, she stopped trying to perfect it. So it took me a lot longer to perfect my French, but because I tried a lot harder, after 5 or 6 years, I overtook her. But it was very difficult. And language for me is the first sign we have that someone is not from our tribe, apart from color.
Okay, so you're coming. Is this an identity thing then, a bit like Katerina, or is it different?
So the human mind is good at differentiating things. We know when things are different, and when they're not different, we know that they're the same. And the whole problem with freedom of movement for some is a lot of people want to protect their culture and their identity. And with freedom of movement, we have a mixing of cultures, and some would call it a dilution. So many fear losing their cultural heritage. I might even say a majority, because I still believe we're a minority that move around. Down here in the south of France and in other places in the south of France, we have the Catalan culture down here, and on the other side there's the Basque culture, and there are a lot of around the world cultural identities which throughout history have experienced bigger cultures trying to crush them. And across France, we have the gypsy culture, which is an extremely strong culture because it resists French culture. No one really understands how it does it so strongly, but it does. So for me, language is the second common denominator. It's how we know if someone is from our tribe or not. So it's the second obstacle for being integrated apart from color that we have to pass. And it's not just language, it's accent. Because in a country, there is a discrimination through accent, where it would be the UK or France or other countries. Class uses accent to discriminate class.
We've lost your microphone, Kim.
Where did I cut off?
Class uses accent to discriminate class. I think something like that.
That's it. Yes. So yes, class uses accent to discriminate class in most countries. For me, it's more obvious in the UK. People couldn't very clearly identify where you come from in the UK and what social status you have by your accent. And I have witnessed people in the UK openly discriminating on others based on their accent. It's prevalent. In France, people still discriminate on the accent, but since they cut off the head of their king, they hide it a bit more. And in France, for me, the different classes mix more. They still notice your position, your social status based on your accent, but they don't openly discriminate because that is now taboo. So in a same country, the people discriminate against each other based on accent, So for an outsider coming in, you're immediately discriminated upon by your accent. And I noticed from an early age that having an accent set me at the lowest priority in any conversation, and often meant that I was taken less seriously by most people because they believed I had less power in the country to make things happen. There are a few exceptions where you have open-minded people that treat everyone the same way, but I quickly noticed that that was not the case. As I was young when I came here, that highly motivated me to cultivate a perfect French accent to be able to pass undetected amongst them. And today I'm proud to say that some think I have a better French accent than the French.
Well done. This is good. So there's a whole sociolinguistic interplay here. We're going to move on with still with this question. So Celia's coming next. But I'm just thinking, from what you're saying, what I get out of this is that there's interplay between, let's say, language in terms of your sort of national origins or linguistic origins. Say, in other words, you come from the UK, you come from Spain, you come from Portugal or whatever. Okay, just Marian, she'll have to come in next. Okay, yeah. So there's this issue of how your sort of origins sort of set you at a disadvantage, perhaps, or maybe even at times an advantage. You said there are exceptions. Okay, so that's interesting. But then you mix this in with the fact that within the country, it has its own ways of operating with regard to accent and variation in language. So there's a sort of the geographical sort of origins of where we come from and what languages we talk and how we're learning. But there's also the whole sort of class or social issues to do with the way we speak that you're finding that actually coming alongside this first issue. So that's very interesting, and it would tie in for me with some existing research on sociolinguistic variation. So that's very interesting that this is being picked up on. So Marian, I'm going to hand over to you because you said you have to go. So we'll hand over to you, and then we'll come back to Celia and Sophie, if that's okay.
This is really fascinating for me, having had an opportunity to live in so many different countries, and as I've mentioned, because I think there is something about how you're perceived is really, really important. And I've learnt the languages that I've ended up having to learn in order to be able to communicate have been Kiswahili and Nepali. And then, of course, French, because of where I'm living now. But I also feel that Catalan is sometimes spoken. I remember having a conversation with the mayor in the village on one occasion, and he was speaking to me in French because he knew that I could speak French. And all of a sudden he switched, and I was thinking, I am not understanding what on earth he's on about anymore. And he switched to Catalan, and it was only a friend of mine who was also from a Welsh background who's lived in France a long, long time and has a bit more of a smattering of Catalan than, and I certainly don't, I haven't picked up Catalan at all as yet. So that was an interesting dynamic that was going on there around making you feel welcome or not welcome in one respect. I think that having had the opportunity to learn languages from quite a young age, I've noticed in my children, so they were able to communicate in Nepalese, which they did with all their friends. But one thing about Nepalese is that it has a form of Nepalese that's spoken amongst children, which is different from what's spoken amongst adults. And so you get, so that when they went back to Nepal later on, they realized that they had to do something around learning adult form of Nepalese, which was fascinating. But one of the things about my eldest daughter has got a real facility around learning languages, because she speaks, of course, English. She speaks Nepalese. She did her degree in Mandarin and economics. So went to China for a year. So she also speaks some Mandarin and she speaks Spanish, and she picked up Catalan while she was with us. So she's just got one of those really amazing facilities to learn lots of languages. But I think one of the things around language, it's not as important as it used to be. And I think that's quite interesting in itself, and that I have made friends in France because people are wanting to learn more about how to use English, because that being, as somebody else has already said, it's become more of a universal language. But I kind of feel, because I'm still working here in the UK at the moment, so my ability to, so I am not fluent, and I would like to gain further fluency, because I know I can't have a conversation in my field, because the scientific language is not what I'm using every day. And I also wouldn't know how to start having a conversation around politics, because I think you need a greater level of language ability to be able to converse and understand the nuances around all of that. But I do even think that with with the use of computers and technology, that's also making a huge change, because we can use, not that they're always perfect, but we've got more at our fingertips to enable us to be able to at least read and in other things are being written in other languages more easily as well. So yeah, so it's an interesting one.
So you bring technology into this sort of into the equation concerning this sort of linguistic sort of belonging and language needs. So that's very interesting, obviously, and that's something that would have been less present a while ago. So that's very interesting. Now, if you do have to go, then just leave us when you have to.
I'm so
it's
sorry.
been great to have you. It's really been super. And thanks ever so much for being part of the project. That's
yeah, thank you very much indeed. Yeah, I've got a meeting that I need to attend, so sorry.
Right, can we move on to Celia and Sophie? Can you tell us about so it's following up the original question about this whole idea about what freedom of movement means to you, and this idea of belonging. How do we add language into that? What part does language play within this very complex situation, in a sense?
Me, right?
Yeah, you can go first. I don't think it matters what order we use. Go on.
Okay.
Go for it.
Okay, thank you. It was very interesting what Kim was saying, because I was actually thinking something very similar. How language is used to differentiate who's part of your group and who's trying to get into your group. And this has been also my experience, so I have to share the reflection, especially in Napoli, which they obviously speak Italian as the national language that is spoken in Italy. But actually, in real life, the way everyone communicates, they speak Napoletan, which is a complete different language that not comes from Italian. It comes from Italian, but it also comes from Spanish, from Arabic, from Greek, from all the cultures that have been in Napoli. So it's how people communicate in their daily life, but it's also a way people that live in Napoli communicate to make people that are not Napolitans not part of the conversation, because it's really hard to understand if you have not grown up in a Napolitan environment. Napolitan is really hard to understand. So it's a way to keep conversations private when I have the clue that maybe someone international is around me and I want to talk about them, or I want to say something that maybe is not the nicest thing, or whatever. So it has been used to make the difference, like, I like you, you are welcome, because Napolitans are very welcoming people. I like you. I'm not bothered by your presence here, but you are not a part of this conversation, and probably you're never gonna be part of this conversation because you are never gonna be Napoletan. So language for me is really related with what I mentioned before about the belonging feeling. It's really hard to feel that you belong in a place where you really struggle to communicate and really struggle to be heard. Because if I'm like a real life example to really make this more understandable, if I go to job, if I go to a restaurant or a public space and I communicate in Italian, and from my accent, you can get that I'm not a native speaker, and you answer me in Napoletan, it's a way to let me know that this conversation is maybe not going anywhere, because it's very obvious that for me, Napoletan is not a language that I can understand or that I cannot speak. So it's these everyday moments that some people are gonna make clear, like, if you wanna stay here, you can stay here, I don't mind, but I'm not gonna change my language, I'm gonna keep speaking Napoletan, and if you don't understand, that is not my problem. So yeah, that's my reflection about belonging and being part of.
Okay, yeah, and it's very interesting. We have again this idea of pitching and local varieties being a factor of inclusion or exclusion eventually. So that's good. Can we move on to Sophie? Now, am I right in thinking, Sophie? So you're from Marseille. You're French, and so yeah. So what role has learning Italian and being being fluent or using language been an important factor in your sense of belonging and your sense of feeling this whole freedom issue, how this has sort of become part of your life? Sorry, wasn't very clear.
Allora, prima faccio la parentesi per continuare sulla cosa del napoletano, nel senso che paradossalmente comunque il napoletano ha integrato molte parole tipo arabe, spagnole, e poi non lo vedo tanto come per forza come una chiusura il fatto di parlare napoletano di fronte agli altri, ma è una cosa che fa parte di loro, dunque magari non ci pensano manco che potrebbe escludere qualcuno parlando, perché pure io ho imparato parole in napoletano e mi escono così.
So first of all, I would like to make an introduction and, make reference to what Celia. First of all, I think that this is a paradox because, as Celia said, in Neapolitan language, there's a lot of Spanish terms or also Arabic terms. And well, I don't think that is a way to exclude other people, maybe just because it's a part of them, and you can't cancel that part of you. And also became a part of me because I learned some Neapolitan terms and I use them in my daily. And I don't think about it. Maybe sometimes I say these words, but because I learned them and because they became an integral part of my culture.
E poi per tornare su Marsiglia, come Napoli appunto è stato un porto di accoglienza, e io da bambina ho sempre sentito parlare più lingue, dunque ci sta comunque questo fatto qua. Poi per fortuna ci sta anche l'Istituto Italiano di Marsiglia che mi ha permesso di fare le prime esperienze per andare in Italia, un mese a Savona, un altro mese all'Università per Stranieri di Perugia, e poi vorrei un'altra visione della vita.
So I would like to make a comparison between the port of Marseille and Naples, because when I was younger in Marseille, I was in contact with many languages. So like my horizons were broadened because I didn't feel this kind of exclusion because I was used to listen speaking many people in their native tongue. And so, continuing on this. And I would like also to quote Federico Fellini, who said that there's a specific quote about languages and multicultural heritage. a different language is a different vision of life. So like learning new languages is a way to express ourselves in a different culture and also to enrich our cultural baggage. And well, this was possible because in a concrete way, because when I was in Italy, I also
Di Trieste?
I was also in Trieste, and I had the possibility to be hosted by the Italian Cultural Institute. And well, I was in contact with many universities, for example, the University for Forensics in Perugia, where there were both students coming from South Africa or Asia, or South America and Asia, and also other universities in which the topic of multilinguistic aspect was fundamental.
E l'amica di Trieste? Quella...
Okay.
Dite direttamente, è un'altra cosa.
Yeah, you've still got something to add. This is really good. But I think we have actually got to draw our roundtable to we've got to close, we've got to finish, we've got to end. This is just exciting. We got to question number 2 out of 27. So that just shows how rich it all was. And it would have been nice to end with just sort of a memorable moment or a take-home message from all of you, but I don't think we're going to have time to do this. It's just been really, really, really good just to have you here and to, as I said, in the first instance, to thank you for being part of the project. And I think this roundtable has just enriched our data in a very interesting way. Sophie, did you want to just say something just to end? Could you want the last word? Can you? Allez, Sophie, on vous laisse la parole pour clore cette séance en français, s'il vous plaît.
Ah, se volete. Alors, le linguiste Philippe Blanchet, justement, est né à Marseille et c'est lui qui a inventé le terme de glottophobie. Alors, pour moi, maintenant, c'est plus automatique de parler en italien. Et différentes non mi daneggia. Vedete, les mots ne me viennent même plus en français. Et d'avoir différentes. Et j'avais aussi un souvenir par rapport à une amie de Trieste, mais je ne voudrais pas être trop longue non plus.
Okay, merci beaucoup. Okay, I'm just going to translate quickly. So Sophie's just pointed out that the French sociolinguist who comes from Marseille, Philippe Blanchet, we were talking about accent discrimination earlier on. He's coined the term glottophobia, which actually relates to exclusion, inclusion, and discrimination through language. So it seems to sum up some of the things that have been said today. So yeah, I'm going to hand back to the big chief Pasquale to wrap up this session. And I'm just so sorry we just couldn't carry on for another 6 hours.
Well, Henry, maybe just next time we can find 6 or 7 hours. It's been fascinating, guys. I want to thank everyone that took part in this roundtable today, especially everyone that also was one of the people that were interviewed in your country. So thank you so much. I'm sure if you can hear me now. So thank you so much, everyone that took part in this project and today as well. Arianna, Henry, you've done Mai as well. You've done fantastic jobs there. So thank you so much. We have to wrap up here. We'll be back at 11:30 with a roundtable on Brexit and European Union citizens. So thanks again. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you for the experience and the opportunity. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much. Have a nice day.
You too.